What's up, guys? Welcome back to another great episode of the ABNF podcast. Nick, we are here with another special guest to the show.
Yes, sir.
Omar Fouad, a longtime listener of the show, a lifelong Raptors fan, if he wants to consider that. We are really happy to have you on the show today, man. And Omar, just tell us a little bit about yourself so the audience can know who you are.
Yeah, I'm Omar, a big fan of the show, obviously, and glad to be on the show and all that. Yeah, I've been a Raptors fan since I could say probably around like 2012, 2013. Really since Rudy Gay was traded. So like around the Rudy Gay trade, like that's when I was a fan. So yeah, I know a few things about basketball, but yeah, that's all I'd really say.
We're definitely going to be discussing today.
Yeah, no, 100%.
Yeah.
And Omar, I mean, I've known you for a really long time, so I would say you know a good amount about basketball. So we're definitely hyped to have you talk a little bit about it, especially because like the biggest thing, Nick, that we're going to be talking about today is that OG trade.
Yeah, it's a huge trade. It shocked me and probably shocked a lot of basketball fans just because we talked about it before starting to film this. Like, we don't really see trades in December like that.
No,
We really don't. We don't see them until like once we get closer to the deadline and stuff. Once we get a little closer, obviously after the new year and stuff like that. But I personally would have thought Pascal would have been the first one to go, not OG.
yeah,
Just because I think Pascal is under contract, right? OG's really not.
Pascal, yeah, he signed an extension, I believe, 2
Yeah.
years ago. I think it was 2 years ago.
Something like that. But no, so yeah, we're definitely going to talk about the trade. What does this mean for the Knicks? What does this mean for the Raptors? And our last topic after that, we're going to talk about is Oklahoma City Thunder. Are they frauds or are they true contenders?
I think they're pretty legit. I'm not gonna lie. Like I think
Well, we're going to get into that topic for sure.
we know that you love SGA,
Oh,
but
yeah.
Omar, since you are the guest of the show today,
Mhm.
we want to hear your opinion first about the trade itself. How did you feel when you heard the news, and what do you make of this trade for both Toronto and New York for this season and moving forward?
Okay, feelings around the trade. So first thing, when I found out OG's like I think for Raptor fans, he's like him and Pascal are probably like the oldest, I guess, members of the team. Like they've been there for maybe since like 2016 for Pascal, 2017 for OG. So he's had kind of like a lot of memories and stuff like that. And he has a unique personality too. He also has, I think, with that game winner, I think against Boston in the bubble. So he has some memorable moments and stuff like that. So it was definitely kind of like a bit of a shock. But I think Toronto also kind of needed a reset. Obviously, with Nick Nurse getting fired and Fred VanVleet, leaving to Houston, they already kind of had a little bit of a shakeup. But now that they kind of went into the season, they were struggling and they went on this 6-game losing streak or something like that. And they broke Detroit's 28-game losing streak and all that. It kind of seemed like Toronto kind of needed to shake things up. Ironically, when they lost to Detroit was the same day as the OG trade. So yeah, that was, I guess, not part of the equation, but they did struggle. And I think it is kind of good that they needed to reset, because I think for like Emmanuel Quickly, for example, right? This team didn't really have any guard talent. Who they picked in the 2020 draft that Emmanuel Quickly was in was Malachi Flynn to be their kind of guard, and they tried it out with him as a backup point guard. Darko Rajakovic was really giving him a chance, which Nick Nurse never really did. I don't think he's serviceable at all. I think it's like at this point in his career, perhaps down the line, but I think he struggled a bit for Toronto, and him being the only other guard next, I think Dennis Schroeder, they kind of had a need for like a guy like an Emmanuel Quickly. RJ Barrett is kind of a bit more of like a stand, I guess, for OG. From Toronto's perspective, obviously he's younger. OG's probably going to would have probably demanded a contract north of like 40 million a year for Toronto. RJ Barrett would be a bit cheaper in that sense. Also, RJ Barrett probably has more sort of like isolation scoring ability in terms of like potential. I don't think OG has that. I think his strength isn't super functional in an offensive sense, because he's like he's not really coordinated well, and he doesn't really have great balance. So like kind of building on that, they probably wouldn't have been able to do that. But yeah, it was it was definitely a bit refreshing for Toronto. I think it was a good trade on their end, at least from, being able to reset and get younger and kind of have a core around Scotty Barnes and all that. I also think it was a good trade for New York. Obviously, it isn't the last move. It isn't the sort of move that puts them over the top. It probably will be some other move down the line or something like that. But I think OG is obviously a very versatile defender. I think a lot of Toronto's identity with him was like Toronto had that whole like five wings kind of lineup or four wings next to like Fred VanVleet. And like so much of what made them versatile was OG Anunoby. Like when they were guarding fives and stuff like that, a lot of times it was OG Anunoby. When they would when they would have to, deal with like quick guards and stuff like that, a lot of the time point of attack defender, OG Anunoby. He's versatile in every sense of the word defensively, on, off the ball. He also kind of allowed, I think, Scotty Barnes and Siakam to kind of be who they are off the ball defensively, which is where I think they're good. So like OG, I could see the value, I think, defensively, especially for New York. Even when they played Minnesota, right? We saw he guarded Ant for times and for possessions at a time. I thought he did a good job on him. And then later on in the game, when Cat kind of got going, he was also on Cat and he took a lot of possessions there. So you're seeing sort of the versatility in what he can provide for a New York team. So I think it was a good trade from both ends. I could see it being a higher end trade maybe for Toronto, just in terms of like setting maybe a better sort of direction for where they want to go future wise. So I don't know. I think it's a win-win, but yeah.
Okay. No, I mean, I think that you made a lot of great points there. I do agree that the move itself, I feel like it was a win-win trade, I guess, for both sides. I think long-term for Toronto, I do think that their goal was to find a way to build around Scotty. That's what it seemed like to me.
Yeah.
And bringing in a guy like Emmanuel quickly, where you really didn't have anybody. I know you mentioned about Malachi Flynn.
Yeah.
And I know he's been there for a couple of years and stuff, but I think with the departure of Fred VanVleet, I know they brought in Dennis Schroeder on a 1-year deal, or was it 2 years? It was 1 or 2 year deal.
I think it was 2 for 26, I believe, for Dennis Schroeder.
But short term, yeah.
Okay, so 2 for 26 for Schroeder. You don't really have a point guard in the sense of like what you normally would have. I think I actually I would have taken. I mean, as a Bulls fan, I would love to have Emmanuel quickly on my team.
Oh yeah,
like he's an athletic guard. He has the ability to score. And I don't think RJ Barrett is necessarily somebody I would have given up on if I was the Knicks. Not because I think that he necessarily is going to become some superstar for Toronto or that he was going to become that in New York, but I think he's a really good option to have on your team.
Yeah.
I know that ever since Thibodeau took over, after like halfway through his rookie year, his 3-point percentage has actually gone up every year, which is crazy because he's not a great defender in like the sense of like what Thibodeau really likes to run for his teams. But I think that he did get the most out of RJ Barrett that he could, at least in that sense. But again, I don't know. What do you think though, Nick?
So I can see why the Knicks made this move, because obviously since Thibodeau is a very defensive minded guy, he got 2 very, very good defenders on his team. They needed a big. Mitchell Robinson's been down. They've been struggling with that 5 spot. So I like they added him with Anunoby. But to give up on Emmanuel quickly and RJ Barrett, if you're going to give up on those 2 players, 2 really good, young, talented players, don't you think they could have gotten somebody that's an every year all-star caliber player? I like OG Anunoby. I like his game. I think he's improving offensively every year. Very elite defensive player, probably one of the best ball defenders we have in the league for sure. But I just don't think he's gonna ever get to that level offensively to make this trade like worth it. Is OG Anunoby probably the best player in this trade? That's how a lot of people view trades. Like, who got the best player? Yeah, he probably is the best player right now, but I think RJ Barrett's gonna have a great opportunity in Toronto to be that second guy with Scotty Barnes. Once they trade Pascal Siakam, of course, because Pascal Siakam's still on the team. Once they trade in for more draft picks and more assets, I think Toronto hit the home run ball personally with this trade, especially trading a guy that's not really under contract after this year. And obviously they didn't sign Brad VanVleet. He went off to Houston. They weren't going to re-sign OG Anunoby. They were going to have this direction at some point, and to get 2 young, talented players out of this deal, I think it's a home run for Toronto.
No, I agree. I agree.
Yeah.
Omar, do you think that Pascal is gonna go like either in the near future or at I guess the trade deadline really, because I mean like that would really
I
be the
think
near
he's
future.
gone.
Do you think he's gone at the trade deadline?
He's made it difficult. I would say that, right? I think to preface, I think a report came out, I think a day or two ago, talking about one of the issues, one of the hurdles is going to be he's not extending. He won't even sign like a 2-year extension with any team that trades for him, regardless. It's not even like depending, for a specific team. He's basically said he's not going to because he wants to have ultimate control in free agency. That's a pretty, risky proposition for a lot of teams. A team who could it could be worth the cost for, I think is, I don't even want to say could be. I think it definitely would be Dallas. Dallas is like the team where I'm like, okay, he makes a lot of sense there. I don't know if they have enough, right? I'm not sure they have sort of like if obviously I don't expect Lively to be a part of it. So you start talking about like, okay, they have Omax, Prosper. Who else do they have? They probably have
Like
Josh Green. I don't know if
They don't have like a lot of tradable pieces
I don't
that
think they have
Toronto would
draft
want
capital
back.
either.
And I don't think they have a lot of picks just due to I think part of they got
Kyrie.
Kyrie kind of cheap,
Mhm.
but they traded out a pick in that. And they didn't have a ton of picks. Maybe in the off season they would, but I think at the moment they can only trade out like one first round pick. So picks wise, they can't really stack the deck. It's going to be hard for them to outbid like maybe like a team like Indiana. Atlanta is another team. Indiana, I think, has more blue chip prospects when you talk about like, okay, a Jarris Walker. Matherin's been like in the conversation. I don't think Matherin, if I were Indiana, I love Siakam, obviously, but if I were Indiana, I wouldn't want to move off of Matherin for Siakam, especially knowing that he's like a free agent, stuff like that. And the risk again that comes with it.
Just now too for OG, they just got
That-
quickly and Barrett.
That's true.
And Gary
That's true.
Trent's still there. They still got some guys. Yeah, I feel like if they do trade for Siakam, they got to get a young 4. They need a young, talented, like power forward, or even like a small
Indiana
forward.
or
Just
just like if
Oh.
you're trading.
Oh,
Pascal
Toronto.
Siakam,
Okay, I see
like,
what
in
you're saying.
general.
Yeah.
Just like you said, yeah, with Dallas, that'd be very interesting. But obviously, they're not going to move on Derek Lively.
Derek Lively, yeah.
yeah,
I wouldn't
I
expect.
wouldn't do it.
I don't know. I wouldn't expect Toronto to ask for Lively though, because I feel like that's a big ask because that's your best, and they need him immediately too, right? It's like it's not just like I don't think Toronto would be real like it's not the same, but it's like if Portland was asking for like Bam for Dame, it's not like I think that's out of the question. It's just gonna come down, I guess, to what team is really willing to take the risk. If Toronto, I think there's a chance that Toronto might walk away with still having Siakam at the deadline. That's a massive risk, but Toronto's done it twice. They did it with Kyle Lowry, they did it with Fred VanVleet. Obviously, Kawhi Leonard, different situation, but they've done it before. So it wouldn't surprise me. I think he would probably leave, because if I'm Siakam, for example, and they re-sign Siakam to like a big, let's say 4-year, 5-year kind of max deal, right? They'd probably just try to move him next year at the deadline. So it would kind of just be like a recurring issue. You might as well, if you're Siakam, go out and sign with like a team like Philly, cap space, Nick Nurse connection, the Cameroonian connection with Embiid. It's an interesting situation, but we'll see. I also the Kings have been mentioned. The fit kind of feels clunky.
I feel like that would
but
be
the
a
fit,
little
yeah.
weird. And
The fit feels clunky everywhere though with Siakam. Just like a post up player who isos in the middle of the floor. Not the greatest shooter. His defense I think has taken a dip too. He's a good help defender, but to me his defensive reputation has been lagging behind by like at least 2 or 3 years. Back in like the bubble or even the championship run, he was a really good defender. I think now he's a little bit more closer to like average. I think on the ball he's not the greatest.
Big time.
So yeah,
I remember he had 32 in game 1 of the finals against
Spinny
right. He's had he's definitely had his moments, and I think offensively he has a lot of value, but fit is always going to be a question. I think for any team, just because again you can't not a great 3-point shooter, post ups, middle of the floor isos. That's not. I don't know, for a lot of teams that's probably going to be a tough fit, but I mean, you could also just try to out talent your way through fit. Teams have tried to do it before. if you're Dallas, for example, Kyrie, Luca, Pascal, they're the team that makes the most sense to me to really go all in on him. But yeah, we'll see. I think. Where do you guys think he probably goes?
You know what I was thinking about, and I know like media already pushes it, but I feel like in terms of, I guess somebody that needs Golden State. I feel like I know that sounds, I know that like, and I don't, you know me, Omar, I don't like Golden
Sure.
State, so
Yeah.
I just think that if they were going to start moving off pieces and they're just trying to find something for Curry, in terms of, because right now we know that this team is not good enough to win in the West.
Yeah.
Getting a piece like Siakam could help them maybe start a new leaf. They do have young assets that Masai Ujiri might be interested in trading for. I know that probably they would be asking for something like a Jonathan Kuminga. Probably Andrew Wiggins is in that trade, I'm going to guess. And
He's Canadian too.
Yeah, so another Canadian.
Yeah.
Right back to Canada.
Yeah.
And probably like one or two other players and probably a draft pick. Like he's gonna want a decent amount back for.
Kuminga's gonna be the key part of that trade for sure. That trade.
Like if they want to get young and they want to just have like a lot of young assets for them, like that trade could make sense.
I think Kuminga could be good too. You know, like Golden State, he's never gonna have an opportunity there, really, to be honest with you. I mean, Clay, Draymond's not going anywhere. No one's gonna want him in that contract. Obviously, Steph's gonna have the ball in his hands for the rest of his career, pretty much.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And Kuminga was picked 7th overall, I believe. Very young, talented player, very super athletic. If he works on his perimeter game, think about it. If he did go to Toronto though, and he reaches full potential with Barrett, quickly, Scotty Barnes, it'd be a very interesting team one day.
I have a question on Kuminga. Where do you guys feel like the potential is? Like, let's say he went to a team where he gets free reign. What is the sort of ceiling for him?
I'd say probably like borderline all-star like caliber player, possibly like maybe makes one or two, like Andrew, like I would put almost like an Andrew Wiggins type of player where he could make an all-star team once or twice. I don't think he's like a perennial all-star that's gonna be like a top 15, 20 player in the league, but I think he's like a good, if he really had the ability to grow, maybe he could be a 2 option, and some team, but I don't know if that necessarily is a championship team. I think he's uber athletic, but I think one thing that we always see with a lot of players is the athleticism is always the first thing that leaves players. And then if you don't have like anything else to your game, like a jump shot or the ability to really like create for others, you're going to kind of like become a Dwight Howard situation where like now you're just kind of a role player that goes from team to team depending on the situation. I mean, where do you put him? Like in terms
Jonathan Kuminga?
Yeah, where do you put him?
Okay, for Toronto, I don't think that's I think Toronto would probably want Kuminga's probably the most valuable young player outside of maybe Podziemski. Is that how it's pronounced? I don't know. But Pods and like Moody are probably fit wise better for Toronto, I think. Kuminga, to me, there's a lot of like overlap with Scotty. To me, there's a lot, like a ton, to where the fit would be difficult. Also, personally, I'm a bit lower on Kuminga. I feel like he's a very high end Javonte Green. Like which is but I don't. I feel like but I mean his pre-draft comparison was like Jaylen Brown, so perhaps there's more to tap into. And obviously, when you look at his like, I think was he in the G League on the Ignite or something? Like
he was.
There's a lot of potential there, but I don't know. I feel like the sort of ideal role for him is like really hyped up Javonte Green, which is I think can be a piece on a championship. Like I think you could have a role player who gives you like a 15 a game, moves really well off the ball, eventually kind of works out the spot up shooting, good on the offensive glass. Like, and he's a good defender. I think that those things can have value. I think almost like an OG, but probably a worse shooter and probably not as versatile defensively. Maybe he is versatile defensively. Who knows? But I think that's more of what I see for him. I mean, if I was Toronto, I wouldn't. Value wise, it makes sense, but I don't know that they'd want him specifically. Also, from like Golden State's perspective, right? Imagine you take back Siakam, and in that deal, you have to move Wiggins just for like contract purposes, right? To sort of match salaries and whatnot. And then Kuminga, right? I mean, your forward depth becomes a massive issue, and now you're putting Siakam, Looney and Draymond together is like that's your starting unit. Like those three in the front court. That's to me, that's a spacing issue
Oh, that is.
as big as it gets, you know. Yeah, I don't know if Golden State's the ideal location, but I guess they're kind of in a
Warriors are
desperate
stuck right
situation. So
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. I think like in terms of and like what you just said, they are stuck.
Yeah.
I think that, and you make a really good point about that too, because they already have spacing issues because really the only person that can shoot on the team right now is Steph Curry.
Yeah.
And I know
Right.
Clay has kind of had a little bit of a resurgence like the last 2 weeks,
Mhm.
but he's been pretty bad. Wiggins has looked like a shell of himself this year. That's been another one that's
Yeah.
kind of like he just doesn't look like he's there. And
He hasn't since they won the championship, to be honest with you.
yeah,
that's
he's
true.
yeah.
Do you know what's crazy is that Draymond actually was shooting really well from three this year before he got
Hey, really?
suspension.
Wow, I
Yeah, he was
wasn't.
shooting like 40% from three this
Yeah.
year, which was like
Wow.
insane.
Yeah.
Is it like
I
low
don't-
volume or is it like Draymond of like old, but like you know old
I
school
think they just
Draymond?
they're leaving him so wide open, and obviously Steve Kerr has probably been
Yeah,
making him, dude, if you're open, just shoot the freaking basketball. If you're wide open like that.
it's ironic because he was never like a great shooter, but there was like a year or two where he was at least like part of what was the appeal with him was like if you're gonna leave him open, he could hit that shot. And
Yeah.
it's like I don't know what happened over the years, but it just
I think
I guess maybe he got it back. Who knows?
I mean, yeah, 2016, you know, he actually
Game 7, he went off.
he could hit the three at a decent
Yeah.
clip, but I think the biggest issue was I think once KD came into the fold in those 3 seasons where Draymond Green was really just the guy that was there on defense, made good passes, wasn't really asked much to
Mhm.
do anything on the offensive end. I think with him having no touches, and because he wasn't a great
Yeah.
shooter to begin with, I think if you're not taking those shots,
Yeah.
you're gonna likely just not hit. I guess like you're gonna be cold every time you take the ball. So I mean that could be honestly why. And now he's getting like touches because nobody else can shoot the three. So it's like why not let it fly?
You know what I thought about just now too? The Knicks. Do you know why Thibodeau wanted OG Anunoby so bad? I think this reminds him of Luol Deng.
Yeah.
Luol Deng was that like
That's a-
defensive player, you know, his offense was
Mhm.
improving a lot, especially in the D Rose era.
That's-
They love Luol Deng.
Yeah.
And I think it kind of reminds them of that they needed a guy like that because Jalen Brunson's that guy. He's that guy. Barrett was never going to reach his full potential in New York. He was always going to be that third option because Julius Randle was always going to demand the ball a lot, and they needed more, you know, perimeter defense on this team, and they felt like they really needed to make a splash and get one of the best on-ball defenders. Did they overtrade for him? I think so. At the end of the day, I think Toronto won the trade, but I think it just reminds them of how Luol Deng was with the Bulls in the D Rose era, and I think he thinks that OG Anunoby could be that for Jalen Brunson.
Yeah, I feel like I do feel like Thibodeau is gonna like run OG down to like the ground in terms of like how many minutes he plays in because I mean Thibodeau has been known for playing his players like way too many minutes. I mean like you go back to 2012, Derrick Rose game 1 against the Sixers in the first round, you know, why are you in the game when you're up double digits with a minute and 20 seconds left? You know, like you should have already been out of the game. And unfortunately, like with Luol Deng, I think when you bring that up, do you guys remember the whole spine issue that he had? Like that was a whole thing that kept him out for a really long period of time. And it's like things like that can happen. Not saying that's what's going to happen to OG. It's just like when you make that, like you're right. Like I know
like a Luol Deng,
like a Luol Deng type player where he's going to play him a crap load of minutes. You know, we'll see. I love Jalen Brunson. You know, I said this before the beginning of the season. You know, I really do think that Jalen Brunson will be an All-NBA player this year. I do think that he has like third team. I think is a possibility for him.
Oh yeah,
I think that
absolutely.
I think his game has really been able to expand, but obviously you're not playing behind Luka Doncic anymore. And I mean, your running partner is Julius Randle, who is a back to the basket type player, likes to play on the like the not the perimeter, but like on the block. Like that's where he wants to go.
Physical Siakam. That's my comparison. Physical Siakam. He's super strong. He's
What do you guys think though for like New York? Because like I feel like this is a lateral move for them. Do you think that they're gonna make another move at the deadline to get another piece that makes them better? Because
They have to.
I feel like you kind of have to at this point.
I think, to be honest with you, they might have got the best player in this trade, but I don't think they won the trade personally. The good news is they didn't give up any of those first round picks to get him.
Yeah.
Now they gave up 2 really good young talented players in Barrett and Quickly, but now you have 8 first round picks, man. There's been a lot of rumblings in Cleveland. Donovan Mitchell might want to get up out of there. Now, I don't know how much depth you're going to be able to trade, because if you were going to get a guy like Mitchell, I mean, Quickly could have been one of those guys. Barrett could have been one of those guys as well. But now it might just be like, okay, we're going to give you 4 first round picks. It's going to be one of those trades, I feel like. I feel like Anunoby kind of reset the market, because I think a lot of teams were surprised what Toronto got out of it. I feel like. Might not be with the draft picks, obviously, but to get those 2 guys, I think a lot of people in the front offices were like, I would have not given up those 2 players for OG Anunoby.
What do you think, Omar?
Well, one before I just want to preface with because you guys were talking about Thibs earlier. I feel like Thibs also just coaches like the Luol Deng thing. He coaches on like vibes and like trying to relive, the past. Luol Deng, they brought in Taj Gibson.
Have you seen Taj Gibson like a week ago? He was like this.
Yeah,
he's all vibes, right? It's interesting, but I do agree with the OG Anunoby kind of resetting the market. I was worried that like Toronto, like the way it was going, that they were not going to get, like they would trade Siakam for like DeAndre Hunter or something. That would be like it. Like I guess it helps that like OG came. He went for something of actual value. Because it definitely felt like for a while, especially after like the Gobert trade, or maybe the Donovan Mitchell trade, I'll say, because that one was after. But it felt like after that there was not a ton of trades where teams were getting good value back for like all-star players. OG is not an all-star player. He got a decent return back, so I guess it signals that teams might be more willing to spend than they were last year. Last year, I think the Bulls and like the Raptors were 2 of the teams that were looked at as potential sellers. The Wizards kind of, I mean, they got rid of Rui, I guess. The Jazz gave like the Lakers a whole like 3 rotation players for Russell Westbrook and protected first round pick that's like it's like I think it's like protected, lottery protected for 1 year, and then becomes a second round pick in like 2028 or something like that. I'm like, they got him for basically for free. They got Vando, D'Angelo Russell, and who else did they get? Beasley. Yeah, you're right. Yeah. That was that. Only the Lakers, man. Only the Lakers would got to do it like that. But
hey, it's LeBron's league, man. He still runs
Pelinka magic. I'll give Pelinka credit, because that's like pulling that off is to me that's super difficult. And like even Minnesota too. I mean, they had issues with D'Lo where he was like bullying Gobert in the locker room and stuff like that. Like, and D'Lo's kind of worn out his welcome at various places. Golden State fans were sick of him after like half a year. What do you call it? In LA, his first stint in LA, was the whole situation.
Oh yeah.
I mean, they traded him 2 years in?
What's up?
And they traded him, I think, 2 years into LA, and he was like the second pick. Right, they got like Lonzo Ball, and they traded the pick they traded him for the pick that became Kuzma.
Yes, and Brook Lopez. That was the other piece that they traded for that 1 year of Brook Lopez, which they probably wish that they had just kept him because of how good he ended up being for Milwaukee.
Yeah.
That
was a perfect fit for him.
Do you know what's crazy too? His old coach Avery Johnson was like literally one of the biggest catalysts of why he started shooting the 3.
Yeah,
it's like they like interviewed him about that. Like Avery Johnson like told him to start taking the 3 when he was coaching him in Brooklyn.
Wow.
Yeah,
he knew. He saw the vision. He knew he was going to be playing next to Giannis, and
he just knew.
Very interesting.
Yeah, that is crazy. But yeah, I guess it shows you where the NBA was heading. Even in when was he on like the Nets back in like
in like the early 2010s, like 2014.
So I guess Avery Johnson saw the vision.
Yeah.
Wow.
No. But I mean, to get back to your point too, with like the Knicks, I guess, do you see them do you see them making a trade, like another one? And who would you target if you were like Leon Rose in the front office?
Is it me? I'm
Yeah.
supposed to.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah, no,
okay.
you're good,
I've
you're
heard
good,
DeJounte Murray kind of like tossed around as like
you're good.
they'll make it because Atlanta wants to move off DeJounte Murray.
Mhm.
I don't really know why they extended him. Doesn't really make sense to me if they were just gonna flip the script that quickly. And they traded a lot for DeJounte. They traded 3 first-round picks.
Yeah.
Like that's insane.
I
I
got a
mean,
haul for him.
Yeah, honestly,
yeah,
I don't even understand that move, and it was all because
Because Trae Young liked the guy.
well, yeah, but
Yeah.
also the biggest person that was pushing for it too was the owner's son, who has no
Oh.
background experience in terms
Oh,
of like
man.
front office personnel.
Yeah.
So he decided to just be the GM and make that move in order to make them
Oh, man.
competitive. But you gave up so much to have a guy that, unfortunately, I don't really think works
Yeah.
alongside Trae Young,
Mhm.
because right
Yeah.
now the Hawks are fighting for a play-in spot, and I don't
Yeah.
think you can really get that much better considering that they're already in the
Yeah.
I think the second apron of the luxury tax. So like they're kind
Yeah.
of like handcuffed right
Yeah.
now.
Would you give up 4 firsts for Mitchell? Bring him to New York?
No, I actually
wouldn't do
would
it?
not. I would not. I
Wait, they would
actually
still have
won't-
4 remaining, right? They have 8
Yeah, they
first round
yeah.
picks to work with.
Yeah.
So I mean, DeJounte Murray, you trade him. Let's say they trade for him somehow, some way. They
Yeah.
kind of get something done with Atlanta. DeJounte Murray is like the contract, or he's like the big sort of contract that just eats up the salary matching aspect of the trade. You trade the picks. I think that's. I mean, it's just Brunson and Mitchell. I mean, there's going to be questions, I think, with any backcourt.
Yeah.
It kind of plays into what do you call it, Becky Hammond was talking about with you don't win with small players. Brunson and Donovan Mitchell, who I think people what is his listed height, like 6'4" something. Someone was saying he's actually like 6'1".
Yeah, he's not that tall
Like-
either.
Yeah.
And my only
Brunson,
my only concern is with Donovan Mitchell is taking the ball away from Brunson. Brunson needs the ball in his hands
Yeah.
to really like be at his top,
Mm-hmm.
and that's the only thing is there's only so much basketball to go around. Is Donovan Mitchell going to really play off the
Julius
ball?
Randle would feel some type of way about that for sure at some point. For not getting the ball as much in his hands. For sure.
Wait,
That's my only concern.
a
That's why I would
question
say
on-
four first round picks for Donovan Mitchell
Right.
when you have a guy like Jalen Brunson. I'm a little iffy on. I think
Yeah.
just because of like we also saw what happened in the playoffs too.
Mhm.
Not to say that Donovan Mitchell is like the sole cause of why they lost, but
Yeah.
I don't know. They were. You
We
see
were all
that,
high on Cleveland, man.
Yeah.
We were all high on him going into last year for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I have a question on Randall because I'm a bit like it's weird. I think I feel like let's say they kind of they get past the deadline, maybe they make like a move like DeJounte or something like that, or maybe they don't make a move, right? Let's say they just kind of want to see what this core looks like, the OG, what do you call it, Brunson, Randall kind of big 3 looks like.
Yeah.
And then they're like, okay, we'll make our move in the summer, which I think might be the case, especially because Mitchell Robinson's out and stuff like that. So
Yeah.
it's kind of like maybe just a chance to kind of see what it looks like with those 3. But like when I think about Randall, I'm like, when I first saw him, I thought the year that he like made the jump into kind of like did he win most improved that year or not? I don't remember if he did. But 2 years ago when he made that
2 years
jump.
ago, I think
Yeah.
he did win most improved. You're talking about that. You're
Yeah.
talking about the year that
Yeah.
they won and they played Atlanta in the first round.
Yeah.
Right? Yes, I think he did
Yeah.
win most improved that year because he had a crazy bounce back year after
Right.
Yeah.
coming off that year with New Orleans.
Well, wasn't
going
it
to
the year that they
Knicks.
signed him and they got mad because they didn't get the first pick for Zion? That's when they had to take Barrett because the draft lottery didn't go their way and they didn't sign Kyrie or KD because they both went to Brooklyn. Was it that
Yeah,
year?
I think that was the following year.
It was a following
year.
year because it was a year where they were literally screaming fuck Trae Young.
Yeah.
That was
Yeah.
it was that year because Julius Randle had a great year that year. He made his first
Right.
All-Star team as well.
Yeah.
And because it was like literally because I remember when they signed him, because of the front,
They was mad because they didn't get KD. Julius Randle, that's all we get because the Knicks were hyping him the off season. You know what I mean?
Well,
But
yeah.
I mean, he's a good player.
yeah, I mean, look at how pissed off they were when they drafted Kristaps. You remember everybody was booing. Freaking Stephen A. Smith going, "Oh, we've been bamboozled and hoodwinked by
Yeah.
Phil Jackson." Like,
Dude,
Even Melo was mad. Carmelo was mad himself too. He was like, he wanted immediate like help
Yeah,
and they thought Porzingis is gonna suck or whatever, but
yeah,
ended
which
up
is
being a good pick. But
it's irony, man. It's a New York market. They're the craziest fans out there. Whether or not they agree with.
Lakers have an argument.
Oh yeah,
Warriors,
yeah, yeah.
Warriors too.
Oh,
Dude, when I saw the Cam Reddish, it was so bad. The dude bricks 1 3, and half of Twitter wants to like kill Cam Reddish just for that one shot he took.
I'm not gonna lie, it's kind of like how bronze sexuals are. If there isn't a player that's playing so great while playing with LeBron,
Yeah,
role players, they get eaten
Oh, they get
alive on social media. Scapegoated so quickly. And look at how good a lot of those players have been after they left LeBron. If you really think about it.
yeah. It's
Look at Jordan Clarkson now.
there's
They ran him out of Cleveland.
yeah.
He's balling in Utah
That's
since he
true.
showed up there.
That's
I mean,
true.
there's some names for sure.
I'm sure
Yeah.
you could probably put a starting five
Yeah.
that's really good.
Like, I'm
that,
not- yeah.
LeBron teammates that did not play well with him.
That's what I'm saying. They either played very, very well with LeBron,
Mhm.
or they were scapegoats and they got ran out of town. They were balling at other places.
I'll be honest,
I don't think
it's always seemed like his second co-star has played amazing. Like AD for the most part has played pretty well with LeBron.
Yeah.
Kyrie when he was in Cleveland, second time was pretty good with him. I even say Wade the first 2.5 years because Wade got kind of old by the last year, but I feel like those three have played really well with LeBron.
Yeah.
Everybody else has kind of been an end. Like Kevin Love was always kind of there, but I don't feel like he necessarily was amazing. I think it was just that his stats were so inflated when he was playing in Minnesota because there was nobody else but Kevin Love. So that's why he's getting 40-20 games.
Yeah.
They also took him out of his comfort zone, I think, a little bit
That's
the same thing happened with Bosch, right?
Yeah.
A lot of what they do well, like Kevin Love, I thought was a much better. I mean, he still did post up with Cleveland a bit, but I don't know. I think with Minnesota there was a much bigger aspect of his game, but yeah, it's the LeBron effect.
Welcome back, guys, to the second half of our episode for the ABNF podcast. I know where we were leaving off, Omar was going to ask us a question about something that you heard on the Bulls Twitter chat about Luka and Tatum.
Yeah, so one of the things that came up within that sort of argument, I think someone who was arguing on behalf of Tatum was that Luka's a high impact guy, but he has his hands in so much that he raises sort of the floor for and makes the game easier for guys who are maybe role players, maybe strictly a shooter, maybe who isn't super talented or super skilled, maybe like a Tim Hardaway. He has some ability off the dribble, but more so role players, he's able to raise their ceiling. But then guys who are actually good, like a Jalen Brunson, Porzingis, guys who are skilled enough to kind of do their own thing and do a variety of things offensively, he kind of limits those guys just because he has the ball in his hands so much and he doesn't really have a ton of role versatility. So it kind of negatively affects guys like that. And that was an argument that someone made, I think, against Luka, and sort of the idea that he's super impactful because he negatively impacts guys who are skilled, and it contributes to this perception that his team is just it's Luka, maybe a co-star like Kyrie, and just a bunch of bumps. That's a lot of the perception around Luka's teams. And sometimes in retrospect, we look at those teams that 2021 team. It wasn't that bad of a squad, Dorian Finney-Smith, Tim Hardaway Jr., Porzingis. I feel like I'm blanking. Brunson was also on that team, but
they had JJ Redick, but he was at the end of his career. They also, I think, didn't they have did they have Seth Curry on that team, or was that when he was in Philly? I think he was in Philly at that time, but I know he's been he's kind of gone back and forth.
They had Richardson. They had Josh Richardson, I think, unless they traded him. But
they might have.
He was on Mass at some point for sure.
I know he was definitely
because he was part of the Seth Curry trade. That's what made me think about it. But
yeah, no, I mean, the Mavs have had decent role players on their teams. Right. I think that a lot of times though, people will run with a narrative, and they just kind of one person says it and then everybody's oh, they're not wrong about it. I don't know why, but like if you really look at it, Jalen Brunson really got his first opportunity to show who like he was as I think like as a more of like a serious like threat. When I know Luka was out those first couple of games in the 2022 playoffs, I feel like that was his first moments where we really saw how important Jalen Brunson was to that Mavs team because they made it all the way to the Western Conference Finals, obviously, that year. They beat Phoenix in a hilarious 7-game series where Luka is literally sunning Devin Booker and now like owns Devin Booker and it like lives rent free in his head.
Phoenix Suns should have been drafted number 1 overall in that draft. Could have been him and D Book together right now.
With DeAndre Ayton over, like I don't disagree.
Overall,
I don't disagree that like if you could go back and I mean, there's like so many drafts I think we could like go back and be like, I can't believe that guy was drafted top 5.
Marvin Bagley.
He's ripping on my Duke guys now. Come on, man, don't do that. I'm a diehard Duke fan, that's why. So there's been a lot of Duke players that have been like the Julio Okafor's another one, picked 3rd overall.
Justice Winslow.
Okafor had a good rookie year. That's the thing too.
He did. That is true.
Yeah, that was rough.
He really fell off after that.
Honestly,
everyone thought he was going to go to the Lakers. Actually, he thought he was going to the Lakers.
Jaleel Okafor?
Yeah, he thought he was going to get picked 2nd on draft night. He was like, "I'm going to the Lakers," but then they ended up picking D'Lo.
Yeah,
and it pissed off Jaleel Okafor. He didn't want to go to Philadelphia because Philadelphia was horrible.
That was trust the process.
Yeah, that was like
Philadelphia.
Yeah, he did not want to go to Philadelphia.
They had a ton of they had Noel, they had Embiid.
Yeah.
I mean, like, it's a tough situation to go into. To be the 3rd center drafted there within like 3rd top 5, maybe top 6 pick with Noel. Like that's rough, but
that was when they were like really questioning like how many centers are like is Philadelphia going to take because you're already at 3, and you can't play all of them.
No.
And I mean, like, Jaleel Okafor got drafted in a really awkward time in the NBA because the game was already starting to change. By the time he was already entering the league, a back to the basket center was like the least efficient player to have on the floor, especially I think like during the Warriors dynasty era where everybody needs to shoot the 3. I do feel like that was when we really saw small ball at its finest. I'm not saying that we're going back to the old school part of the game. I think that now one of the biggest things that every team needs to have is if you're going to have bigs, they need to be versatile. They need to be able to do more than just like being able to get a rebound. Like they need to be able to either be a good passer, have some type of offensive game, shoot the 3 a little bit, and just kind of be
switch.
Yeah, because one of the biggest things
it's tough on the guard or whatever,
Yeah, because we see a lot of bigs that get switched on and they get put on an island, especially like a lot of guys like Rudy Gobert, who in the playoffs is going to be picked apart because if you're going to switch onto him and he's in an ISO situation, he's not going to be able to stay in front of a smaller guard. So that's the other thing too.
Bold prediction for me. Timberwolves
Just
are going to go home in the first round.
Timberwolves in the first round?
They're going to go home.
Wait, say that you said they'll get upset in the first round?
Yeah.
You think they're going to be the 1 seed?
I don't know if they're going to be the 1 seed, but depending on the matchup, I think they're going.
What matchups do you think are problematic for them?
Well,
like which ones are you like?
Oh, problematic matchup.
Yeah, problematic for
very interesting. Especially if the Lakers somehow got down there and they barely got in.
Another situation like last year.
Something like that. I just think eventually having Pat and Rudy on the floor together is going to cause nothing but problems, especially against teams that can really score at an elite level with elite guard play. I just don't see. Minnesota's had a great regular season. Don't get me wrong; they surprised a lot of people. They certainly surprised me for sure, but I just don't see it working in postseason play. Personally, I just don't see it.
Yeah, they don't have I think the biggest problem is 1, Cat doesn't play defense. 2, Rudy Gobert doesn't really have an offensive game. And then you put those 2 on the floor in the playoffs, especially when you're playing a 7-man lineup usually. I don't know if you guys agree with this.
Clippers could cause they're going to cause a lot of problems in the playoffs if they're healthy.
Yeah, they could. I was going to say to both you guys, I think the only team that Minnesota has the personnel to match up with is Denver because they have the size to play against Jokic.
Yeah.
But that's one of the only teams that I really see them like where it's kind of like okay, this won't hurt them if they play Cat and Rudy, but I feel like a lot of other teams, because they're smaller, they're going to just take advantage of that size mismatch.
Yeah.
And I don't think it actually helps Minnesota. I think it actually hurts them more than it helps them.
Yep.
So that'd be my only thing.
I have a counter kind of that because like the idea, and I think this was even sort of circulated when they made the Gobert trade, was that like it gives them sort of versatility in the sense that you can go back to it would be a tough conversation, but you could bench Rudy Gobert in certain matchups, right? Like,
Sure.
let's say he can only play 15, 20 minutes in a matchup where he's just getting, I can't even say, I don't even feel like he's like, because he's not like a Zubac to me where like Luka's gonna take him and pull him out on every pick and roll and he's just gonna look like, I don't think Gobert's that immobile. Like, I don't think it's like, to me, the Jazz issue is more that they're like, he had to be at the rim and he had to be on the perimeter because like they're like perimeter defense for whatever reason, even though I didn't think their defenders are that bad. For whatever reason, their like defenders just couldn't keep anybody in front. Like Reggie Jackson just blowing by like Donovan Mitchell and Joe Ingles and like it was just a disaster. Like I don't think Minnesota has that same issue. Like that's the main thing. I don't feel like Gobert is so bad or like so immobile to the extent that he's like he's just gonna get played off the floor if you go small or something. His main concern obviously is the offensive end, right? He's just not particularly skilled. The moment like if you put a guard on him or something like that, or maybe not necessarily a guard because I think there's still an advantage there, but like let's say a wing, right, who can just like physically hold up just enough sort of on the like post up where he gets like positioning and stuff like that to where you have enough time just to like collapse on him. He puts the ball on the floor, turn over, like fast break the other way, whatever, right? I, that I think is a concern, but I also think for like Minnesota, they had the versatility where they can say, you know what, we can go Cat at the 5, right? It isn't ideal for them, but it is something they can go to. And Cat, he was the 5 the year prior, right? He was when they were playing like super, like their scheme was all like they're putting 2 on the ball in every pick and roll, and they're gonna hard hedge everything. Like they gave Ja, I think, in the Grizzlies a big run for their money. Partly, they like I thought they guarded Ja the best, partly because Cat can actually come up on those hard hedges and like he can sort of put pressure on the ball handler and contain it a bit and all this stuff, right? So I don't know that there is sort of that versatility, I think, for them. But offensively, yeah, it'll be a concern, right? I think even right now, there is questions about their half court offense outside of Ant, right? I'm not super confident. I mean, you have Cat, actually, Cat can do a lot.
Play. That's what I mean. The game slows down a lot more come playoff time.
Right.
That's true. Yeah.
The possessions go down. You know, I think teams are going to really want to set their offense up, and I feel like they're going to be able to get some switches that they like. They're going to take care, and I think it's going to force Minnesota to come with a second defender at times, but Cat's on the island, someone's on the island.
Yeah.
At times, I just feel like, depending on the matchup, I really think they could go home in the first round.
Yeah, that's fair.
I think,
which is like you said, they match up really well with Denver.
I think
if
like
they end up winning a round or two, they get that matchup
with Denver.
could
I think
really
they could actually give them problems because the
Mhm.
only other team that has really given Denver problems in terms of size was back in, and I mean that was Jokic at a different time, but in the bubble with the Lakers Lakers actually had the personnel to throw at Jokic because you had JaVale, you had AD, you had Dwight Howard, so you had enough bodies to throw at him, and a lot of teams in this league right now don't have that type of personnel where you have 3 guys that are 7 feet tall that can play defense on Jokic. And I mean, like, I think also what you were also talking about too with like the way the game slows down. I think like you're going to make somebody other than Ant beat you in the playoffs. So that's where like the other thing comes down. And like you said, Omar, like there are going to probably be matchups where Rudy Gobert is going to get benched because I think just
like a Dallas matchup or something.
Yeah, like because he just is going to get exposed in some of those matchups. And it's gonna really just be based off of how small of a team are they gonna be playing in the playoffs. Because I think that will really dictate what Minnesota does.
Right.
But I'll hold you to that. I mean, we'll see what happens. I mean, I don't think anybody necessarily saw Minnesota being the 1 seed. I really think that was, I think that's one surprise we can definitely say for this year has been Minnesota's like surprising
for sure.
Yeah, like I think we just kind of had Denver there because Denver was you know,
Yeah.
defending
Right.
champ.
You had the LA teams there.
Yeah.
There's a lot of teams that were, there pretty much.
Yeah,
left.
for sure.
I'll say this, who did beat the Nuggets twice?
Who?
Who beat Minnesota?
Who?
Who beat Boston?
Who?
My favorite team in the West, Oklahoma City.
Oklahoma
Thunder.
City. Okay, so it's time for that topic.
Yeah.
Okay. I definitely think, though, that out of anybody that's been talking about OKC, Nick, you were one of the first to really talk highly about Oklahoma City Thunder. I know you've been a really big fan of SGA. His game has just continued to improve. He's having an amazing year. Definitely going to be an all-star again this year.
He'll be first team All NBA again. He's gonna be an all-star. Should be an all-star starter this year. He should have been an all-star starter last year.
I agree with that.
I'll tell you what, man. I think he's putting himself in the MVP conversation. I mean, you're second in the Western Conference. Look at the game he had last night. We had 36, 7, and 6, something around those lines.
Yeah.
Really took over that game against Boston. You're doing that against Derek White and Drew Holiday are guarding for the most part. Those are two very good guard defenders.
Even in the fourth, Tatum was on him for like almost the entirety of the
Boston's
fourth, and he was still cooking.
They're a very good defensive team.
They just kept throwing bodies at him just to try and slow him down.
Yeah. I just like how they keep this underdog mentality, and now they're finally starting to get attention in the media now for sure after that win against Boston, I think pretty much. But look at the name; they're not big names. Jalen Williams has had a great year for them. He's not a big name. No, not many real NBA fans know about this guy.
I agree with that.
Is probably going to win Rookie of the Year. Probably going to win Rookie of the Year.
I was going to ask a question about that too.
I mean, obviously it's a neck and neck race, but Chad Holmgren's is having a really good year. Lou Dort's a very good defender. They have a lot of shooters on this team. They shoot very good from the foul line. As a team, they're close to 40% from three. They got a lot of guys that can take people off the dribble. Obviously, they got a guy like SGA that can close games out. He doesn't fold under pressure. Chet Holmgren can knock down the three. He's very versatile, can guard on the perimeter, can block a lot of shots. Dude, I like this team, man. They're going to cause a lot of problems. This is a team that nobody wants to play in the postseason.
What do you think, Omar?
I agree. They're really, really tough to guard. I will say this. I feel like scheme wise, I feel like they're not easy to guard, but I don't feel like there's a ton of like, I don't like teams where like it's a lot of like
power.
Not just firepower. I feel like so much of their offense is like Shea's gonna work in the middle of the floor.
Yeah.
Everybody kind of clear out and stuff like that, and that creates advantages, right? Because Shea's unbelievable. Like I 100% agree, and he's not easy to guard, but in terms of like complexity of guard, like I don't feel they have like relative to like let's say Denver, right? Denver is hard to guard, right? Golden State, I would even say, is hard to guard, right? There's like a ton of movement and this and that, and like if you're gonna send two on like a pick and roll or something, like they can pick you apart. Like there's issues there, right? I don't know that it's the same with OKC in terms of like there's like the scheme aspect. That's what worries me a bit. But I mean, of course, like if you shoot really well from outside and you have someone who can get to his spots, like against any defender, like a Shea, like it may be simple, but it works, right? And I don't know, it certainly could. I think, I want to see what it looks like against like Minnesota, for example, like that. That's like with a McDaniels, right? How well can McDaniels kind of contain that one-on-one, right? If they do send help or they kind of like shade or this and that, like what kind of, I don't know. Well, it's going to be interesting.
I think the pressure could get to them too. Now they're finally starting to get talked about in the media. I think Oklahoma kind of like how they're just like kind of flying under the radar. Now they're the second seed in the West, and look at all their wins they've had this year. It's like I said, they beat the Nuggets twice. They just beat Boston. They beat Minnesota. They beat pretty much all the top teams in the league already. They're 23-9 right now. I think that's their record. Now shows are starting to talk about them. So we'll see how they react to that, because I think they liked, Sam Press. They like being this small market franchise. They like that nobody really talks about them. They're only known for having all these draft picks. They're not really known, for all that stuff. So
Sam Presti, the wizard.
Yeah, he's a wizard, man. And I really like Oklahoma. Just like you said, though, it's gonna be very interesting to see how teams guard Shea come postseason play. I think Oklahoma likes to have this underdog mentality, and they play very, very hard every single night, even in the regular season. They're 100% in every game.
Yeah.
They might come back to bite them in the second half of the season. Maybe injuries might start happening. You don't know. Maybe Chet Holmgren might go down. Things of that. But we'll see. But they're off to a very good start right now, and if they stay healthy come postseason time, man, I really like this team. I really do.
I like them. I think, like you said, though, I think both of you made good points. I do agree that I think that, and I get what you're saying, Omar. I do feel like they do have good pieces. I do feel like it's really SGA. I think Jalen Williams has actually been their second best player in terms of just overall game.
Yeah.
I do feel like, yes, they do have guys, but it's kind of like an issue that a lot of teams with big name players can sometimes have is like when it comes down to it, who else besides your main guy is going to knock down a shot for you in a big moment? And we'll see when that comes to the playoff time, I think, for OKC, and depending on how teams are going to scheme against them.
Yeah.
But I was going to ask both of you, because you mentioned Chet Holmgren being Rookie of the Year, and it looks like he will be. How have you guys felt about Chet Holmgren? Because I've watched like highlights, and for the games that I have seen OKC, he looks solid. Like, he looks good. My concern with him is his size. Like, he still needs to put on some weight. I just feel like one of these times he's gonna get bodied by like somebody, and he's gonna gonna break his arm or his knee.
You saw how he got hurt before his rookie year.
Yeah,
in that Drew League, and LeBron I don't think he really hit him that much, and he ended up being out of the year and stuff like that. But Oklahoma has, how many picks do they have? They have so many draft picks in the.
They have like 25.
They can't even roster.
It's a crazy number. If I'm Oklahoma, what if they got a guy like Lauri Markkanen? They have all these draft picks. They have a lot of young talent to get. If Oklahoma really wanted to go, I don't think they'll win the championship with this current roster. They won't win the championship. Do I think they could get to a conference semis? And maybe depending on the match, they could get to the Western Conference Finals? It's possible. I don't see them coming out of the West or anything like that, unless if they made a move. If they could get Lauri Markkanen somehow in a trade, and you know how Utah's front office, they like to have draft picks now. You know who's in their front office now?
Danny Ainge.
Does that put them over the top?
Adding Lauri Markkanen?
Yeah.
They're up there. I don't know if it puts them over the top.
Does it go to a conference final, you think?
Depending on the matchup. I think it could. But I don't.
It's another guy that gets space the floor for you for Shea.
For
another
sure.
Pick and pop guy. Lauri Markkanen is a very deadly shooter. And with Diggs, obviously, he can shoot the ball, and then they come up so quickly. Lauri Markkanen can take players off the bounce too. Very versatile guy. Another guy that could, do a lot for this team.
I think. I mean, I'll let you go, Omar.
I'm trying to. So what would be okay? Like, let's say Giddey's maybe sort of going to be unplayable in certain matchups and stuff like that, right? If you do have Markkanen, what would be so it would be J-Dub, Shea, Markkanen, Chet, and then
Dort probably
Dort be in that lineup still. And then you still have like guys like Casey Wallace off the bench. And we're getting about Jalen Williams too.
The other Jalen,
trade him.
Yeah.
Probably.
Well, yeah.
Obviously, Utah would want him for sure. That'd probably be the cornerstone piece that they would want out of that deal.
Jalen Williams. They would.
Sam
What's the Jalen?
He's talking about because you're talking about Jalen Williams, number 8. That's who you're calling J-Dub, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Because they do have another Jalen Williams, but he's a backup forward for them.
Okay. I feel like that could put them over the top. Okay. So let's say they played Denver, right, with that sort of lineup. Is Markkanen is it Chet? Is it Markkanen that would or Jokic or?
You
figure it out in my head.
Put Markkanen on. I feel like Chet's gonna get put.
Yeah, I think you have to put Markkanen on him. I think, and you just have to pray that man don't get in foul trouble. Jokic could put a lot of people in foul trouble in games, especially. Obviously, he's not Markkanen is a big guy. Obviously, he's like 7'1", maybe. He's 7 feet tall, right?
He's like a 7.
He doesn't have that
footer.
frail body like obviously Jokic has, or like an Embiid has, or things like that. So if they could stay Lauri Markkanen out of foul trouble, they're probably gonna have to bring the double, because I think he'll eat him alive 1-on-1. And Oklahoma,
they don't have a lot of
their rotations are gonna have to be big.
Yeah,
because Denver could shoot the ball too. So if you're going to leave Michael Porter Jr. wide open on the weak side, or maybe Murray's going to be open, you got to make sure that you're going to be able to recover and rotate. If not, then they're just going to keep barking on an island, and Jokic is going to go for 40 every night.
And that's why I said depending on the matchup. I just don't. I can't see them playing. I can't see them beating Denver just because they don't have the size for Aaron Gordon and Jokic.
Yeah.
Like I just feel like that's a really bad matchup for them.
I think they beat everybody else.
Yeah, no, they have enough. Like they have enough. I think Lauri Markkanen definitely puts them
Yeah.
above a lot of these
I
teams.
just wonder what Sam Presti's going to do. I mean, they're second in the West. They
Right.
have all these draft picks. I think he knows deep down he loves to start. He knows this team's not going to win a championship right now. Does he
Right.
keep these picks? Does he keep letting this young core keep developing? Or does he put his chips in the middle and go, you know what? I'm finally going to go all in now. He's not really the type of guy to like really go all in. Like think about it. Like he drafted KD, he drafted Russ, he drafted Harden, drafted Serge. Like he's not really a guy that puts his chips in the middle so much.
I'd say the only time he's really made a big trade was like the Paul George
PG.
trade. Like
Yeah.
that's like the only one that can come to memory for me where it was a big trade that you got a top guy out of it to keep your other star happy.
Yeah, we got Shea.
I mean, yeah, I mean that was
Yeah.
probably I mean, well, in retrospect, when you look at it now, that Clippers trade just
Yeah.
continuously looks worse and worse and worse for LA. Each
Imagine
year they don't win a
Shea
championship.
in the LA market.
I mean,
Yeah.
one of the biggest problems that LA had for the last 5 years has been no point guard because you
We'll
trade.
never,
Yeah,
I don't know. We'll never see a trade like that again. Because like just I
Yeah.
don't know that you'll have a trade where a free agent like a Kawhi or someone is gonna sign with like the Clippers and he's holding them hostage basically until they trade for Paul
Yeah.
George.
That's wild.
And like even for them, for the Clippers perspective, it's like we're getting Kawhi and PG. That's why I
Yeah.
always look at that trade as like OKC got half of the return, which is like PG, and they got half of what Toronto's return would have been if it were like a normal world where I guess where Kawhi isn't, where it's like a sign and trade or something like
Yeah.
that instead. But
Yeah.
that's why it was like just a staggering return. Yeah.
Yeah. It's gonna be interesting. And obviously, Utah's asking price would be extremely high for Lauri Markkanen. Extremely high.
did you see the one about Kyle Kuzma?
No.
Apparently, I don't know if this is for real.
Yeah.
Oh, multiple
that
picks?
was the troll. Oh, there was a troll account that's like, I'm like
Oh.
that. So apparently there was a report. I just don't know. It's because like there's so many NBA Twitter accounts out there that
Oh,
it's like
yeah.
I don't know
They
which
post
ones to
random
trust.
trades and all that
But
stuff.
apparently there was one that I was seeing today where it's like Kyle Kuzma, like the Wizards will make him available for like 3 first-round picks, which I think is nuts because I don't
He's not
see him in any world being worth that type of return. But
You'll get a first out of him.
But the
Top
way that
three,
the way the market is, and I just think like because of that OG trade,
Mhm.
I mean, for a role player to be going for those type of pieces, like
Yeah.
it's possible. But I don't foresee it.
You got to
unless
set
somebody-
the price tag high, right?
What's up?
You got to set the price tag high.
Yeah.
Plus, the Wizards still saying that is like insane to me because we're talking about like the team that traded what do you call it? Bradley Beal for essentially Jordan Poole, right? They traded Kristaps Porzingis. They didn't get
And
any
had to
picks. They
give
got
draft
Tyus Jones.
capital just to get rid of him.
Like I
Yeah, that's wild. Yeah.
the and it was like a new GM too. That's I don't know what was going through. Like how did Boston get 2 first-round picks in a deal where they trade out Marcus Smart and they get Porzingis?
I
and 2
don't know.
first-round
You
picks
get the
for
best.
Marcus Smart?
You get the best player in the trade, and you also acquire more draft capital from the team you're taking the player from. It's like
I don't understand. I don't get it.
Man,
I don't know.
I'm so pissed because it's like if they were gonna do that, the Wizards help the Bulls out. Like, why the Celtics, man? Like, help the Bull. We could have used 2 first-round picks for free, and
I
Porzingis
remember-
just go. Like,
Bulls are another one of those teams, and obviously they've been playing much better. They've been 10-7 since
the
Zach
Levine.
has been out, and obviously
Yeah.
they were 5-13 with Zach. Unfortunately, Zach is gonna have to come back because if the Bulls are looking to move him, a lot of front office people are gonna question like, is this guy a winning player? Look how the
Right.
Bulls are playing without this guy. They were 23rd, I think, in assists. They're a top 5 team in assists since Zach Levine has been gone. They've been moving the ball a lot better. DeMar has been playing very differently. You know, he's kind of like the San Antonio kind of DeMar. You know, he averaged
Right.
about 7 assists a game in San Antonio. He was kind of like their point guard, I guess, if you really think about it from that standpoint. And obviously, Kobe White has been absolutely a stud. He's been putting up some big numbers.
Yeah.
You know, so it's gonna be very interesting because Zach, hopefully they still win some games with Zach. The Bulls still play better. And if Zach still wants to get out, obviously his trade capital is not there right now at the moment, and he's gonna need to build himself back up.
I think if
around the
they,
league.
I mean,
Yeah.
I hate this too because I feel like one of the only trade partners that is going to be there, even at the trade deadline, unfortunately, is the LA Lakers. And I just
We
don't.
better get Reeves.
I mean, like,
That's all I ask. We better get Austin Reeves or I'm gonna be pissed.
and I still feel like, based off of who Zach LaVine, or at least how the Bulls treat him, like, I still feel like a package of Reeves, Roy, probably Reddish, I'm gonna guess, and that draft pick. Like, I feel like I feel that we're still getting robbed. We're somehow like getting like bamboozled by them because I think Reeves is good. I think he's a 6-man type of player that like can give you good points off the bench.
Yeah.
Roy was good when he came, like that stretch that he had in the playoffs, like in against Memphis,
His career.
and then the way he played against Golden State and even against Denver in like that first game, like that was what Washington thought they drafted, and he was going to be like that all the time. And I think that's like he's regressed a little bit due to all the additions they made with the team this offseason, and he also got hurt, so he hasn't really been able to be there. But like, in no world do I want D'Angelo Russell anywhere on the Bulls.
No, I hope. Oh my god.
And like you said earlier, Omar, he is he's
He's
basically
LaVine
like
without any of the positive. Like, there's no
Yeah.
same toxic. Like, if LaVine is toxic, I don't know what D'Lo is, because LA, Minnesota,
Brooklyn.
Golden State, LA again, Brooklyn.
It's actually
I don't know
good
if he had beef
Brooklyn.
with Brooklyn, but like
Yeah.
4 different places wanted him out. Twice in LA, they were done with him. I mean, he has a pull-up jumper. He's a good pull-up shooter. I mean, there's that. The athleticism definitely not like
shooter.
Zach.
He can knock down the 3 at times,
His three, if he's feeling it, he hits it.
Yeah.
I'll give him that. But otherwise, it's
Yeah,
D'Lo taking shots after the game, not being able to play defense, thinking he was going to become Derek White because he said, "I want to
Man.
mimic my defensive game
D'Lo,
after Derek White."
D'Lo's different. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I think, I mean, we'll see.
Yeah.
I mean, even if LaVine does come back, let's just say, and continues to play for the Bulls, as a Bulls fan, you want to see them be good. I'm not saying this team is built at all to contend. You just kind of hope that at least if LaVine does come back, there is wins that comes with it, because if this continues to be L's, they're
not.
I mean, the fact that LaVine dropped 51 points and we lost to Detroit is
that was Detroit's last win before they beat.
Like,
was the Bulls.
Let's just remember LaVine. Like, the last time Detroit had a winning record, LaVine dropped 51.
Yeah.
I mean, do you guys feel like, because there have been, I feel like at least the last 2 years, there have been like rumors that like guys on the team don't like LaVine, and not just like some role play, like several guys, it sounds like, aren't big fans of LaVine. It's weird because then you'll see like what do you call it? Like, you'll see LaVine and DeMar like hugging each other on the sideline or something, but like there's just like sprinklings of this idea that like most of the guys don't really like him. The Goran Dragic, like when he was calling out the team against like the Timberwolves last year, right? It seemed kind of directed at LaVine. Vooch, I think, has moments where it seems like his goal might be LaVine.
A lot of the young players don't like Zach.
Yeah.
I don't think Patrick Williams likes him. I don't think Kobe probably don't like him. Look how good he's playing without Zach. Now Zach's gonna get brought back into the lineup, gonna jack up 20 shots a game again when he comes back, probably. Even like I hope Dosunmu was playing better, even when Zach was gone too. Especially Patrick Williams was playing a lot better.
Yeah.
I was so ready to give up on it, but now he's been playing a lot better. We always known he was a very good defensive player, but offensively he was growing a little bit. Now Zach's gonna get back into the lineup. Now it's gonna be the same bull crap, unless if he changes the way that he plays. Maybe he saw how they're playing now, 5th in assists in the NBA the last 17 games, or 10-7. They should be 12-5. They should have beat Miami. Vooch took a terrible shot. Jimmy hit a game winner. And then they should have been Milwaukee in that overtime game.
That's true.
So they could be 12-5 without Zach. And hopefully Zach's been watching how they've been playing without him, how the ball movement's been so much better, how these younger players are starting to get opportunities to really show the skill set that they have. And hopefully he just changes his persona, really, to be honest with you.
Right.
No, I agree. And hey, I'm just gonna say this. This has been a really great conversation, guys. Omar, we really
Yeah,
appreciate
thank
you
you guys
coming
for
on
having
to
me.
the podcast. It was honestly like I think it's been nice to have somebody on the podcast again as a special guest. I know it's
Yeah.
been a while since we've actually had somebody on, so
Yeah.
we really do appreciate it. Omar, real quick, if you can tell the fans where they can find you at, because I know you have Twitter, so
I'm off the grid.
you're
I'm
off
off
the
the grid.
grid.
That's my burner. Yeah.
Off the
Okay.
grid.
Okay.
Nothing
Okay.
wrong with that at all.
There ain't nothing
Especially
wrong.
the way social media is today. I honestly don't blame you, to be honest.
I mean, I'm
But
on Twitter, but like I just I don't know if I want people, checking out me. So that
okay.
makes me sound like no, yeah. I'll just tell people what my Twitter is because that makes me sound like I'm some like criminal or something.
You might get some Raptor followers, man. You don't know.
That's true.
I had a representative too.
The thing is, I'm also kind of like cosplaying as a Bulls fan in like the Bulls chat. So, and I kind of like try to play it off, but I think my cover is going to be exposed if anybody finds out. But whatever. My at Twitter is Wings in the W for Dallas Wings in the W, but no WNBA. But
Shout
yeah,
out WNBA.
yeah. So Wings in the W if anybody wants to follow me. But yeah. And thank you guys again for having me on.
I appreciate
it's a
you
good
for
episode.
joining, man. Appreciate you been watching the episodes, and we gain a lot of knowledge from you, man. You know your
For me,
your
wow.
basketball, man. So it's very interesting to hear what you had to say, and I agree with a lot of things that you said. So
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
100%, 100%. Guys, make sure
appreciate it.
to go follow Omar on Twitter. We will have his in our description on our YouTube episode. And if you guys have not already, please subscribe. Follow us on TikTok. Follow us on X, Twitter. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. Follow us on Spotify. And again, like I wanted to say one more time, Happy New Year's, guys. 2024, we're hoping to continue to make the channel bigger. I know we've really wanted to try and grow everything. So we are really trying to do big things to strive this year. And, we can't do that without you guys. So thank you again for your support. Omar, appreciate you always listening to the episodes as well, giving your feedback, and really enjoyed talking some hoops with you today. So for myself, Nick, and Omar, it's been all ball, no foul. Thank you guys. Have a good night. Stay tuned. More content's coming. And we'll see you soon.